Clara Barton used to be a pioneering humanitarian who labored as a nurse for the duration of the American Civil War and helped to set up the American chapter of the Red Cross. Although she focused on humanitarian motion instead than politics, she was once a supporter of civil rights and lady suffrage. Even properly into her 80s, Barton remained lively in giving sensible assist to these in distress, something their nationality or background. She additionally established the American First Aid Society. Birth: Clara Barton was once born on the 25th of December 1821 in North Oxford, Massachusetts. Her dad and mom have been participants of the Unitarian Church, had held exceedingly progressive, liberal views. Clara was once taught at a neighborhood college and proved an first-rate student, even though she used to be, in my view, very shy and struggled with social interaction. When she used to be 10 years old, her brother suffered a nasty head damage after falling from a barn roof. Clara took first-rate activity in nursing her brother and grew to be accountable for searching after his scientific treatment. Her brother made a full recovery, even although medical practitioner had doubted he would. Throughout her childhood, she remained pretty shy and located, that supplying help to her, supporting her prolonged household to be the most nice way of giving her an experience of satisfaction. Despite her difficulties in social interaction, her mother and father stimulated her to turn out to be an instructor, as they felt this would assist her obtain extra confidence. In 1838, at the age of 17, Clara received her instructing certificates and observed that the job of instructing was once very rewarding. Inspired with the aid of her job, she campaigned to allow schooling for the teenagers of terrible workers. She additionally demanded equal pay for lady instructors at a time of pay disparity. Barton taught at quite a number faculties in Canada and West Georgia for 12 years, and she won a correct recognition for her professionalism and capacity to mold younger children. In 1852, she helped to locate a free school in Bordentown, the first of its sort in New Jersey. The nearby town raised cash to finance the school. However, after a quick time, Barton used to be changed as major, as the nearby college governors felt the head trainer ought to be a man. Her demotion and working in a hard surroundings left her bodily and emotionally drained, and she stopped the college to cross to Washington, D.C. in 1855. She labored as a clerk in the U.S. Patent Office. It was once the first time a female held such a role, and she obtained the equal earnings as men. However, the employment of a female led to criticism from different employees who felt females shouldn't be allowed to have such a position. As a supporter of civil rights and opposing slavery, beneath the presidency of James Buchanan in 1856, she used to be fired from her role due to the fact of her black republicanism. She again to pals and household in Massachusetts. Service in the Civil War. Clara Barton. In 1860, the U.S. elected Abraham Lincoln as President of the U.S. America as Lincoln. Adverse the unfold of slavery, it instigated Southern slave states to secede from the Union, sparking civil war. On the 19th of April 1861, riots in Baltimore broke out between supporters of the South and supporters of the Union. Federal troopers from a Massachusetts regiment had been dispatched to quell the violent protests. It led to the first casualties of the Civil War. Barton was once in Washington, D.C. when the casualties lower back by means of railroad. She visited the returning troops and grew to be conscious of the lack of care given to the wounded soldiers. She volunteered to seem to be after the injured troops, presenting clinical care and food. With different volunteers, she regarded after troops in the unfinished Capitol building as the troopers have been. From Massachusetts, she regarded many of them and referred to them as her boys. As nicely as Imparting fabric wishes of the soldiers, Barton felt it vital to preserve up the spirits of injured soldiers, and she would examine letters and hear to their private difficulties. In the autumn of 1861, she temporarily received a new role at the U.S. Patents Office. However, as the combat progressed, she wished to spend extra time in imparting care and clinical supplies. In 1862, she overcame stiff opposition from the Army establishment, and her band of volunteers had been allowed to work on the front lines, distributing bandages and clinical aid. She recollects her efforts to overcome normal approaches of working. I have a nearly whole push aside of precedent, and a trust in the opportunity of something better. It irritates me to be advised how matters have continually been done. I defy the tyranny of precedent. I go for something new that would possibly enhance the past. Clara Barton. Her efforts have been generally self-financed. Barton positioned commercials in newspapers for encouraging resources to be donated. Throughout the Civil War, Barton regularly arrived on the front traces at crucial times. Following the Battle of Cedar Mountain in August 1862, she arrived with a wagon load of components simply as casualties had been being delivered returned from the battlefield. The lead surgeon, who used to be overwhelmed with casualties, later remarked on her propitious arrival, "I concept that nighttime if heaven ever dispatched out an angel, she have to be one. Her help was once so timely." Throughout the Civil War, she sought to tour to areas of severe combat, and she was once current at or close to the front strains at civil conflict battles such as Chantilly, Harper's Ferry, South Mountain, Antietam, Fredericksburg, Charleston, Petersburg, and Cold Harbor. She dealt with each Union and Confederate troopers and was once inclined to put at chance her personal non-public protection to administer wounded troopers amid the battlefield. She wrote, "I constantly tried to succor the wounded till clinical useful resource and resources should come up. I may want to run the risk. It made no distinction to absolutely everyone if I had been shot or taken prisoner." Clara Barton. In 1864, she was once appointed the lady in charge of the hospitals at the front of the Army of the James. Working so shut to the front traces was once no longer barring risk. On one event, a stray bullet narrowly neglected her physique, going via her sleeve and killing a soldier she used to be tending to. A lifelong opponent of slavery, all through the Civil War, she additionally joined Francis Gage in supporting to put together slaves for their lives in freedom. After the Civil War, she grew to become conscious of how many households had been searching for statistics about their sons who had been lacking in action, however, except any formal notification of their fate. With the permission of President Lincoln, she commenced the Office of Missing Soldiers, which labored from Washington, D.C. to strive and become aware of and bury unidentified soldiers. For the subsequent 4 years, her group answered over 63,000 letters and helped to bury 20,000 greater Union soldiers. You should in no way so tons assume as whether or not you like it or not, whether or not it is bearable or not, you should by no means suppose of something barring the need, and how to meet it. During this time, she additionally grew to become a properly recognized public determined after embarking on a public lecture tour of the country. She spoke of her combat experiences and grew to be greater fascinated in problems of civil rights. She grew to become acquainted and pleasant with main civil rights figures such as Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass. Foundation of the American Red Cross. Clara Barton. With her work on lacking troopers generally completed, she traveled in 1869 to Geneva in Switzerland. She used to be invited to the Red Cross Foundation, which stimulated her with its humanitarian beliefs and realistic assist defend the unwell and wounded at some stage in wartime. The philosophy of the Red Cross was once based totally on Henry Dunant's beliefs laid out in A Memory of Solferino, which influenced the formation of impartial countrywide Red Cross societies to furnish voluntary remedy to all affected by way of conflict and herbal disaster. Dunant's thoughts for truthful remedy of warring parties in warfare led to the Geneva Convention of 1864. In 1870, she used to be nonetheless in Europe at the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War. At the request of German authorities, she volunteered to work with the Red Cross to furnish useful resource at some point of the war. With a shut working relationship with Princess Louise of Prussia, she served in Strasbourg and at the Siege of Paris in 1871 distributing meals and substances to the destitute. Barton distributing food. Early Red Cross action. On her return to the U.S., she tried to discover economic and legit backing for her International Committee of the Red Cross. In 1878, President Rutherford B. Hayes rejected her request for formal recognition. Hayes argued that Americans would in no way permit a repeat of the horrors of the Civil War, and was once reluctant to come to be worried in an entangling alliance. However, she persevered, and after Chester Arthur's election, he agreed on the groundwork the American Red Cross should additionally reply to herbal disasters. The Red Cross, may additionally show up singular that emotion. So humane in its purposes, so clever and properly regarded in its regulations, so standard in its application, and each way so unexceptional, need to have been so lengthy in discovering its way to the know-how and consideration of the human beings of the United States. Message to Congress. December 6, 1898. Barton grew to be the first president of the American Red Cross on the 21st of May 1881. The first motion of the American Red Cross was once responding to victims of a wooded area fireplace in Michigan in 1881. The Red Cross quickly mounted itself as a necessary business enterprise for responding to herbal disasters, including the 1884 Ohio floods, the Texas famine of 1887 and the Johnstown flood of 1889. Her efforts have been mostly appreciated, although she additionally confronted criticism for the way she organized efforts. The paths of charity are over roadways of ashes, and he who would tread them ought to be organized to meet opposition, misconstruction, jealousy and calumny. Let his work be that of angels, nevertheless it will now not fulfill all. Barton, Clara, Message to Congress December 6, 1898. The largest check for the Red Cross used to be the Spanish-American Battle of 1898. Barton led alleviation efforts for the refugees and civilians caught up in the crossfire. Despite her advancing age, Barton did now not gradual down, however, was once individually concerned in alleviation tries, even in difficult conditions. She additionally endured to travel, working in Turkey and Cuba, even into her early 80s. In 1884, Barton and the American Red Cross proposed and changed to the Geneva Treaty, which referred to as for ingrowth of Red Cross comfort to victims of herbal disasters. And now not simply war, this was once accepted. In 1904, at the age of 83, she was once pressured to resign as president. A new era of Red Cross officers wished to promote an extra-scientific approach, primarily based on the thoughts of the progressive age. Barton was once additionally criticized for her management style, which made her unwilling here to advice. Her critics felt she used to be caught in an historic customary humanitarian idealism. After resigning as president, she spent 5 years as honorary president of the National First Aid Society of America. The society inspired the possession of first resource kits and primary tiers of grasp how to administer first aid. After her death, the advertising of First Resource grew to be extensively normal as a social necessity. She spent her ultimate years in Glen Echo, Maryland. She wrote an autobiography in 1907, The Story of My Childhood. Personal life. Barton frequently suffered from intervals of melancholy and anxiety, however, throwing herself into the provider of others almost continually overcame her private difficulties as she felt fulfilled in the provider of others. She used to be a main pioneer for girl management at a time when very girls had been in positions of duty and power. Her strong-willed persona and unbiased spirit every so often created conflict, however her energy of persona additionally led to aid from a broad vary of society. To Barton, carrier to others was once the most essential factor of her life. I have in no way labored for reputation or praise, and shall no longer sense their loss as I in any other case would. I have in no way for a second misplaced sight of the humble lifestyles I was once born to, its small environments, and the therefore little proper I had to count on tons of myself, and shall have the much less to censure or upbraid myself with for the screw-ups I should see myself make. Barton by no means married or had children. During the war, she had a romantic relationship with Colonel John J. Elwell. Religion. Barton recognized with her parents, Universalist Church of America. She was once, now not a everyday churchgoer, however believed in the simple standards of the church. The Universalist Church used to be a liberal Christian denomination which emphasized character faith, a religion of the heart, and importantly believed that all souls had been destined to be saved by using God. This contrasted with different Christian denominations who believed that salvation used to be constrained to Christians only. Barton's faith used to be in serving the humanitarian desires of all people, anything their belief or nationality. After a astonishing breakout from the 1884 floods of Ohio, Barton remarked on her escape,